Hey everyone, we'll get started. I am super hungry and I'm a fan of Chick-fil-A, so I won't keep you long. We'll try to get out of here fast. And so it'll kind of be like drinking from a water hose or a fire hose. And so I'll just go through the content pretty quick and then leave as much time as we can on the back end for Q&A, all right? Part of our story Sean talked about, but essentially we were stuck under 80 for 4 years, and we got some coaching, some really good coaching, that really talks about how any barrier that a church faces can be put into two categories. It's either a mindset barrier or it's a mechanics barrier. And so some of the coaching that we got was, listen, God wants to grow your church. God wants your church to grow numerically more than you do. If it's not growing, it's not God's fault, it's our fault, right? We've created some sort of man-made barrier that's keeping people. And so our job as pastors is to find that barrier and remove it. And so early on, we knew that one of our biggest barriers that we were going to face was going to be our ability to identify and develop leaders for our church, right? So you look at you look at the story of the disciples fishing, where Jesus tells them to throw their nets on the other side, right? Jesus filled their nets. Now, what if their nets were twice as big? Was Jesus' blessing capped at a certain number of fish, or is his blessing as much as you can handle, right? That's his blessing. Or the lady with the jars and the oil. The blessing stopped when she stopped bringing jars, empty jars, right? So our job as pastors is to, exactly like Sean Lovejoy said, we can't presume it, but we definitely can prepare for it. And I think leadership pipeline is probably the biggest barrier that most churches face, biggest growth barrier. And so over the next couple minutes, I want to share with you the 11 essentials of a healthy leadership pipeline. We'll go through I'll skip all the trial and error stuff, all the mistakes that we've made, and I'll just give you the good stuff that we've discovered over the last 8 or 9 years of developing this leadership pipeline. And so we have some slides and stuff, but afterwards, like Sean said, all the stuff will be online. And so we'll have this video talk online, we'll have some resources online, and so you can go to 521pastors.com and find all that stuff. All right, so first thing is that there are 6 levels of a leadership pipeline. I know that there's some guys that say that there's 4, there's some people say that there's 7, there's business books out there that have more, but I think any church from 20 people to 2,000 can have these 6 levels of leadership in their church. All right, so there's 6 levels in a leadership pipeline. Importantly, number 2 essential is that they all have to be consistent. Whatever you name the different levels of your pipeline need to be consistent across all ministries, right? Because it gets really confusing when your kids' ministry calls them coaches, but your First Impressions calls them captains, and you have no idea what you're talking about. But shared language will help you build the whole culture of leadership development. All right, number 3 is each level needs to have a role, and those roles are not the titles, but they're kind of the main, what does that position do? And so after this, we have our whole leadership pipeline that you guys can take, and it has all this stuff. But roles would be like level 1 for us is leading yourself. Level 2 is leading others. Level 3 is developing others. Level 4 is you're developing developers. Level 5 would be you're building systems, and then level 6 is you're building culture, right? So those would be the roles that we've identified as our leadership pipeline, and those should be unique to you. So use ours as a template, but yours should be unique to your situation. Number 4 is every level should have skills, and skills are things that you can train to, right? Skills are things that you can say, hey, watch me do this. The lower it is on the leadership pipeline, the less skills there should be, right? Because you want easy on-ramps. So like our team members are the very bottom in our leadership pipeline. There's really no skills. I mean, the skill is you can breathe and you can show up on time. That's about the only skill that there is. We'll train everything else, right? But you can work in the parking lot next weekend. Like there's no, we have 18-year-olds that are driving, $10 million tanks all around the world, but we won't let an 18-year-old push a button on the computer for the next slide or whatever because they have 6 weeks of training. Like, it doesn't matter, right? They just throw them in the deep end. We'll train you for whatever you need. But the further you go up in the leadership pipeline, the more skills and the more requirements there are, right? So number 4, every level needs a skill. Number 5 is every level needs expectations. So the difference between these are skills you can train to and expectations they either have or they don't, right? So for our coach level, which would be like a level 3, we would say you need 5 to 10 hours free a week to devote to this role. I can't train you on whether you have 5 hours of free time, you know what I mean? That's either something you have or you don't have. Another expectation might be that you're a member of the church, right? That's either something you have or you don't have, and that's a whole discipleship process. But skills and expectations are something you can train to. Expectations either they have or they don't have. Number 6, you'll see that there's a line right there, right? A dotted line, and this is what I call the 90-10 rule. Below the line, there's a lot of things that are unique to every single ministry, right? 90% is going to be the same, or is going to be different below the line. Very different skills and expectations for parking lot as it is for 4th and 5th grade teacher, right? Very, very different. As soon as you get above the line, almost 90% of it's the same. And the reason for that is you want it to be transferable to different ministries so that you can plug people in different places. Perfect example is we had a lady who was a coach in our First Impressions. Super awesome coach at that level, right? Her role is developing others, and she grew that ministry from like 3 people to 30 people in 3 months, right? So she's awesome, volunteer, she wasn't being paid. Then we had a paid position in our kids ministry open up, and we hired her. And she could start the next day because 90% of what she was doing was going to be transferable to any ministry, right? She's developing others. It doesn't matter whether they're in First Impressions or in kids or whatever it is. And so she moved right into the kids ministry and didn't miss a step because everything above that line is the same, right? Well, 90% of it's the same. 10% of it's different from ministry to ministry. And that goes along with a lot of business books. If you read business books, they talk about how 70 to 90% of management or leadership skills are transferable to any industry. Doesn't matter whether you're in tech or manufacturing or whatever. If you're managing or leading people, that's the same in any industry. It's the same here with the leadership pipeline. Number 7, this is really important, is core competencies. So every level needs what we call a core competency. And the easiest way to describe this is really if you've ever read the book Power of Habits, right? There's keystone habits. There's habits that when you do this, it makes everything else easier, right? So think of keystone habits that each role needs, that if they have that, we can train to some of the other things, but if they have that, we know that they're going to be a really good fit. Or the opposite, you could say, if they don't have this habit, it's going to be really, really hard for them to excel at this position. I'll give you a few examples. So our bottom level is what we call a team member, right? And their job is to lead themselves. And really the only expectation that we have is that you can come 20 minutes early. So our core competency for a team member is time management. If they can't manage their time, they're probably not going to be a good team member. If they can't get here 15, 20 minutes early, we're going to have some serious problems 6 months down the road, and we're probably going to ask you to move on to another ministry or find somewhere else, right? Our level 2 leaders would be what we would call a team leader, and we would say that their core competency, right, because they're leading others, their core competency is communicating effectively. If they're not answering emails promptly, if they're not getting back to me as their leader, then how can I trust them that they're going to communicate whatever we need to do to their team, right? So if they're not communicating well, they're probably not going to be a good fit for that team leader role. The next level up is what we would call a coach, right? Their job is developing others, right? So the core competency for them is that they have a heart to mentor other people. I'll give you a great example. Sean talked about how we're 3 locations now. We planted 2 locations in 6 months. And so our leadership pipeline here was really full. We were pregnant, right? We had more than what we needed. And then when we sent those people out, we were hurting everywhere. In Braintree, when we sent people there, our First Impressions team, like 3 out of 5 coaches left to go with Braintree, which is awesome for Braintree, and it sucks for here because we just lost all of our great leaders, right? And so we were looking for more people that we could plug in, that we could take from the team leader level to the coach level. And so I started looking for that core competency. Who's someone that just naturally has the talent of, or the desire to mentor other people? So through the summer, what we did was kind of give people test drives. We would say, hey, Melissa went to Braintree, and so for the weekend, can you just fill in as the coach for this area? And then, we tried a couple people, and there was one lady, her name's Mal. I walked in, and I knew that she was understaffed. I knew that there were some people that called out, right? So I walked over to her, and I said, hey, is there anyone that I can pull from another ministry to help you? And she said, actually, no. There's a lady that I've been training for the last couple weeks, and I'm putting her as the team leader while I'm the coach, and I want to see how she does. That's our lady, right? She naturally is trying to develop others. So we made her the coach, right? She has the core competency of mentoring others. I can train everything else around you. I can build a team to help you with anything else that you're not good at. But the fact that you have a heart to mentor others, you're the perfect coach, right? So that's a core competency. You're looking for that keystone habit. And then if they have that, that's probably someone that you could move up. Number 8 is train to the transitions. So this is a pipeline, right? In your house, where do pipelines get clogged? In the transitions, right, where things move. And so what you want to do is you want to make that transition as smooth as possible. And so what you're going to do is you're going to take those skills that you have. So let's say you want to move someone from level 1 to level 2. You're going to look at those level 2 skills, those things that you can train to, and you're actually going to make training modules. You're going to make ways to train them how to do those things. That's the transition. So you're training to the transition. So you're going to start including people in those 4 or 5 things that you have as skills. You're just going to really start including them in what you're doing. Maybe have them read an article from Carey Nieuwhof, or read an article from Inc. magazine, or watch a TED Talk on something, and then you're just going to talk about it later. Hey, I emailed you that TED Talk. What did you think about it? How does that apply to our church, right? So perfect. And then the next one, number 9, actually, we'll pause there, train the transition. The 2 transitions on the left-hand side, those are the hardest transitions. One of the things that we learned was if you look at level 1 and level 2, they're leading. Level 3 and level 4, they're developing. And then the top 2 levels, they're building. So those transitions where they go from leading to developing, those are the hardest transitions, right? Because they're the value that they bring to the ministry changes. It goes from leading to now you have to develop, and that's a whole different skill set, right? So that's a really hard transition. So the people that we have promoted and had to ask to step down have been in that particular transition, because it's just a total shift in mindset. You're not being a doer anymore, you're being a developer, and it's a totally different shift in how you think. And so that's just something to watch out for. Number 9 is apprenticeship and training. And so apprenticeship, right, we all know what that is. You're just including them in what you're doing. Come with me as I do this, watch me do this. That's really good for those first 2 levels, a little bit of the 3rd level. But once you really get to those top 3, that's where training comes involved. That's where you're going to need to do things together. You're going to need to read books together, watch videos. That'll have to be a lot more systematized, that top part. But the bottom part is definitely more relational, and just, hey, come with me. If we're training a new greeter, here's the things that we expect from you. Now, shadow Court as he greets today, and you're on your way. Number 10, 5 to 7 direct reports. I think once you get over that, it's really hard for people to manage more than that, and so we try to keep it around 5 to 7, right? So every team leader has 5 to 7 people that they oversee, right? Every coach has 5 to 7 team leaders. You go through all the way down the line. So lead pastor has 5 to 7 people that he oversees. Those level 5 people have 5. If you plan that whole thing out, a leadership pipeline like this can handle almost 3,000 volunteers, right? So this pipeline will work no matter what it is. Another tip when you're building your leadership pipeline, if you don't have one at all, is you build the whole thing out on paper, you structure this whole thing, and then you put your name in every single spot except the very bottom, and you build it from the bottom up, right? So you structure it, you build it from the top down on what you need, you kind of reverse engineer what you need, but then as you start to build it, you build it from the bottom up. So when we first did this, My name was literally in every level except the 5 team members that I had. And then once there was a team member that I thought could be a team leader, I passed that off to him. And then I was just the coach, the director, the staff pastor, right? So you build it from the bottom up. And then the last one is there's 7 types of meetings. And I like that Sean shared, a lot of people think meetings are crazy, but meetings are really, really helpful, right? It's like a huddle on the football team. If a team never huddled, right, there'd be chaos. They don't know what they're doing. So for us, our meetings are super short, and it's really just to cast vision, get on the same page, and then make sure we all have the same goal. And so the 7 type of meetings, there's a meeting in between every level, right? So a level 2 meets with their level 1s. Let me take a drink real quick. A level 2 meets with level 1s, level 3s meet with level 2s, right? You just script that whole thing out. So that leaves you with 5 meetings. The extra 2 meetings are one-on-one meetings, or we call them skip levels. It's where, so I'm a staff pastor. I have directors under me. Once a month, I will skip down to a coach and meet with them. They have no idea that I'm meeting with them, right? I don't say, hey, I need to have a one-on-one with you to see if the director is doing their job right. I just say, hey, Jim, how's it going? Katrina emailed you last week about some changes. I don't know if Katrina emailed them. I'm assuming so, but I'm double checking what she did, right? That's a skip level. You just are meeting with someone a level or 2 levels below you just to see if that person that you're overseeing is doing their job, right? So super simple. It's informal. I have them, during church or in between services or something like that. Or maybe it's even an email. It's super simple. And then the other meeting, the 7th meeting, is a whole ministry meeting. We call them huddles, but it will be where the whole ministry meets together, right? So all of First Impressions, all of kids, a whole ministry meets together, and it's a time for fun. We hand out prizes, we cast vision, we do a little bit of training. So those are kind of the 7 types of meetings. Those are the 11 things in a healthy leadership pipeline, and we have 15 minutes for Q&A. That was my goal. Yeah, if we did an outside hire, we definitely would, but I would try to do it from within if I could. And so our staff has grown pretty fast. I think we have like 23 staff people, and all of them but 3 are outside hires. So we definitely try to do within. But if you're hiring a capable person from some other ministry, then yeah, you can definitely plug them in. But what I would be careful of is they don't have your culture, right? So that's the tricky part. They can do some of the things, but they don't have the culture where the people that have been grown from within, they live and breathe your culture all the time, so you don't need to train them on that. So it's just a different type of training. If they come in at a higher level, they just need maybe a year, 18 months of meeting with you to make sure that they have the culture. But yeah. So her question is, when we bring outside people, do we include inside people in the interview? And yes, so we have kind of group interviews where, I wouldn't even call them interviews, but they will definitely interview with me, and then we'll all go out to lunch with whoever they're gonna lead. And so I'm really looking for, do we gel, chemistry? Because they're gonna be leading those people, so is that, do they even like them? Are they dorky? Are they nerdy? Are they, do they have jokes that we don't even understand? Do we even watch the same TV shows? If there's no chemistry, then it's going to be really hard for them to lead those people. Yeah. Yeah, so his question is, how do we keep everyone on the same page? Honestly, like what Sean said, right, it's a piece of paper, right? So we have everything listed out, every single level from lead pastor to team leader, their skills, expectations, core competencies, everything's on a one-page thing. So our goal is any system should be able to be on a one-page printout. And then we actually have, we're rolling it out in the next couple of weeks, but we have a staff portal that all the staff people can log in and get all these documents. And then, honestly, we train this when we hire people. And so even at the team member level, they know that we have a leadership pipeline, right? So we talk about it all the time. They might not know all the specifics of everything above them, but they know the one spot above them. They know what that looks like. So. Anyone else? Yeah. Yeah, there are books, but I wouldn't suggest them because they're like textbooks. So there's one by Ram Sharan that's called Leadership Pipeline. He's the guy that actually wrote this whole thing. He actually says that there's 7 levels of a leadership pipeline, but they're thick textbooks and they're really usually clogged with like a lot of business jargon. Not too many specifically for the church. So, but there is a guy named Mac Lake, M-A-C Lake, and his website I think is Mac Lake Online, and he has a lot of resources specifically about training, how to train your people in leadership pipeline. Anyone else? You guys are all hungry? All right, so I'll stay if anyone has specific questions, and if you want, this is our whole leadership pipeline. My only caveat to this is please take it, but just don't steal it, right? This is something that took us 8 years to develop, and so it's very unique to Grace Church culture. You should develop one that's unique to you and what you guys value. So definitely use this as a template, but I would suggest not just ripping it off wholeheartedly and thinking that it's going to work, because I don't know if it will. Yeah, Court.
Brian, can you talk a little bit more about the 90-10?
Yeah, what specifically?
So I'm most curious about the things that, I don't care where you are on this, what ministry you're in, what are the non-negotiables that every person at a certain level has, whether they're in worship, whether they're in kids, whether they're at Braintree, whether they're here in Avon. What is, like, give a couple of those. I'm curious.
Yeah, so good example, our directors, right, they need to be able to do budgeting. It doesn't matter whether you're kids ministry, worship, whatever, you need to be able to forecast out a year and a half on what you're gonna need and put that in a budget and then stick to your budget, right? That's one. Another one for the coach level would be you need to be able to apprentice someone, and that's a system. It doesn't matter what it is that I'm apprenticing them, you just need to be able to apprentice them. And so they're all in here. But another one for coaches would be, right, they facilitate a monthly coaching call with the people that they oversee. And we have a system for that, so there's a one-page printout that has the format and everything. So can you facilitate that? Yeah. It doesn't really matter whether it's first impressions or kids, because your content, for us, the content that you're getting for your monthly coaching meeting is coming from your director, right? And so whatever it is, and usually those coaching meetings at that level have more to do with how you're leading people and less to do with the curriculum or the actual kind of function that you're doing. It has less to do with, hey, we need to totally change, how we park cars. That's probably not going to happen, right? But man, I'm having some troubles with this person, or there's some conflict on our team, so that coach level really doesn't matter where they are, because they're just coaching people on how to lead people. So it doesn't really matter what ministry they're in. Does that make sense? Cool. All right, free to have lunch, and I'll be up here if you have any other questions.